All right, we've talked about interior collisions. Now we're going to move on to exterior collisions. Now, here's what I mean by that. So before, you had a rectangle that was inside of another rectangle, and we were detecting when this one collided with the thing that it was inside. Okay, well, now we've got two things that are not inside each other, and their exteriors are colliding with each other. And we want to be able to detect this. Now, it's going to be very similar. We're still going to use rect.collideRect with other rect. The difference is where they're going to hit each other. So before, when we were colliding with the outside here, okay, if rect1 hit this other rectangle here, the top was hitting the top. But that's not going to be the case with exterior collisions. Look, when this guy hits this guy. Shoot, shoot, shoot. It's not very dark. Let me use another one. Let's see where these are hitting. The right side is hitting the left side of the other rectangle. So if this collides on its right side, it's going to hit something on its left side. Okay, if we're dealing with rectangles. And we can do similar things here. If it hits on its left side, then it's hitting the other one's right side. Similarly, if it gets hit on the bottom, then it's hitting something's top. If it's hitting on its top, it's hitting another rectangle's bottom. Okay? So we're going to do almost identical to what we did last time, where we say, okay, if rect dot, well, absolute value, we've got to do that, absolute value, rect dot top minus rect2 dot what? If this one is colliding at the top, that means it's going to hit the other one's bottom. If that difference is less than the tolerance, then we have a top collision. And we'll probably reduce our y speed to 0. Or whatever you happen to be doing in this game. You know, in the game, maybe when you collide, you bounce off. It just depends on what kind of physics you're going for. But as we do these other ifs, okay, if it was left, then we would check if it was colliding with the right, okay? And that's really the only difference between interior collisions and exterior collisions, all right? Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is right now, all we're doing is checking one thing colliding with one other thing. But in a real game, like you've got all sorts of objects that you can collide with. You've got walls, you've got floors, you've got enemies, you've got all sorts of stuff. So how do we check for collisions for all of this stuff? Well, basically what you do is all of the objects where the collision type is the same, you shove all of those objects in some sort of list. So let's say you've got some sort of, platforms or whatever, rectangles that you could be running into. Well, you could make a list, maybe call it rect list. So whenever you make your rectangle, you go ahead and add it to this list. And then all you do is for rectangle and rect list, and then you just detect collision with rectangle. And so every time that loop runs, or every time your display loop runs, it's also going to run this loop and say, did it collide with this? 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 And it's going to ask all of those questions, and that's going to determine how your object moves and whether or not it collided. So This is collision, very important for a physics engine, okay? So good luck.